Scouts, they go on their mission. The scouts come back from their mission. There's good news, and there's bad news. I'll give you the good news first. The land is literally awesome. You may know this about Jews. When we rave about a great trip that we just took, very often we will start with the food. Oh my God, the food in this place. The land literally flows with milk and honey, not just one, both. Pomegranates are beautiful. The figs were ripe and juicy, and the grapes. The scouts report, we cut down a branch of grapes, and it was so big, it took two of us carrying it on our shoulders. A little side note, the modern state of Israel, their Ministry of Tourism, its logo is literally two dudes carrying a cluster of grapes on their shoulders. Jews remember the food. So what's the bad news? The bad news, it turns out not just the grapes are gigantic, the people are also very large. 2 of the 12 scouts, Joshua and Caleb, tell everyone, hey, no problem, God's got this, we got this, God's with us, we'll be fine, don't worry about it. The other 10 of the 12 spies, not quite as confident. You know who we saw there? We saw the Nephilim there, sons of Anak. Apparently they're very large. And compared to them, we look like grasshoppers. And so we must have appeared to them. It sends the crowd into a panic. We can't do it! We're screwed! We're all gonna die! Anybody here ever heard that kind of hysteria in your community? Yes. Anybody here ever felt it in your own heart? Yes. The voice in the meeting that smothers the enthusiasm? The wet blanket that puts out the fire of justice? The voice of defeat, of resignation? The rabbis in the Talmud, the Jewish people's sprawling and wild encyclopedia of law and legend, they give us one explanation for what's going on here. Rabbi Hanina Bar Papa points us to another grammatical feature in the text. Chazak hu mimenu. The book of Numbers reports the scouts complaining. They are stronger than us. Mimenu. Rabbi Hanina says mimenu can also mean not just than us, but also than him. They are stronger than him. They are stronger than God. When we panic, when we decide it's too hard, there's too many moving pieces, the other side has more money, it's just too much for us, the struggle ends before it starts. And not just the death of the struggle. We curse ourselves with the death of possibility, with the death of God. It's not that we should be delusional. Nephilim are giants, fine, okay, they're giants. We can be honest about what we're facing. But what then? Another Polish Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, breaks down the component parts of the panic of the scouts and how they went wrong. Compared to them, we look like grasshoppers. Kotsker Rebbe says, that's reasonable. Okay, you look like grasshoppers, fine. But he continues, when we say, and so we must have appeared to them, what is going on here? What possible difference could it make for you, he asks, how you appear in the eyes of other people? Whether we like to admit it or not, very often the extent to which we will involve ourselves in a justice struggle depends on how we feel will be perceived by our adversaries in the struggle, but also by our allies, sometimes by our families, or our employers, or our fellow congregants, community members. So as we talk about community today, a second question. How does how you look to other people inform when and how you contribute to the struggles for justice in your world? How does how you look to other people inform how you contribute and when you contribute? Take a moment to talk about that. Like I said before, the story does not end so well. Chaos and fear grip the Israelite camp. Joshua and Caleb plead with the people, have faith in God. You've seen miracles before. And for their efforts, the Israelites show their appreciation by pelting them with stones. And God has had enough. Fed up with the people, God makes Moses an offer. Who needs this hassle? Let's get rid of these people. Start over. I know, God says, I'll afflict them with pestilence and destroy them. God continues the offer, and I'll make of you a nation, greater and mightier than them. Imagine Moses, frustrated and exhausted, repeatedly tested by an arrogant people who just can't seem to shake a slave mentality. The offer must have sounded at least a little tempting. What should he do? What would you do? Moses will have none of it. Moses, the lawgiver, the speechmaker, gives perhaps the most important speech of his life. No, he says, don't do it. First, he makes a practical argument. What will the neighbors say? Moses paints a stark picture, predicting the nations of the world will mock God. Because Adonai wasn't able to bring this people into the land he swore to them, Moses imagines the world saying, he killed them in the wilderness? You really want that on your CV? And in a poignant and moving passage, the epitome of holy chutzpah, Moses tells God what God's role in the world should be. Adonai, Erech Apayim, V'rav Chesed, Nosei Avon V'fesha. God, slow to anger, great in compassion, forgiving transgression and sin. And even more remarkably, God listens. Salachti kidvarecha. I have forgiven the people, God tells Moses, because of your words. This community, this wreck of a people that God was ready to abandon, God reorients the future, changes the warp and woof of reality, and resolves to save them, all because of the word of a human being. Usually in community, it's best to listen, to honor our colleagues and our friends, and affirm their experiences, but sometimes the urgency of the hour calls us to speak, to act, right now. The Talmudic take on Moses' historic speech is as shocking as it is sublime. The great teacher Rabbah said in the name of Rabbi Isaac, the Holy Blessed One said to Moses, Moses, you have revived me with your words. Not only were the people on the precipice of destruction, so was God. And it was human agency, human intervention, that revives the divine in this world. How much power do we have? So much. We don't even realize its potential. And so a final question, and we don't have time for you to talk about it, but hold on to it. How does your work revive God for your community? And if it doesn't, how can it in the future? So my time with you is coming to an end, but our time is just beginning. This day, this moment demands our attention. No, God is not threatening to destroy an Israelite camp, but this morning, somewhere, an immigration officer in southwest Arizona is threatening to separate a mother from her children. At midday, a supervisor in Glendale will threaten to fire a worker just for wanting to form a union. As afternoon shadows fall, a county clerk in North Carolina will threaten to disenfranchise hundreds of African American voters. And at day's end, a warden in Louisiana will threaten to beat a juvenile prisoner imprisoned by a justice system stacked against itself, stacked against our Creator. And in each case, at each moment, the very presence and reality of a God of justice will be called into question. Will we take up the mantle of the Brownsville Tenants Council and join with our sisters in the street demanding justice? Will we follow the example of the Coalition of Immokalee Workers and collaborate to create a roadmap to righteousness? Will we open our eyes and open our mouths and open our hearts to do the work, to speak the words that will at long last revive God?